Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Backtrekking, the podcast where we look back at the real-world inspirations behind classic episodes of Star Trek. I'm one of your hosts, Caliban, and this is my dark page. And I'm joined on this episode by my co-host.
Hi, I'm Gooey, and I have a weird brain head. I wanted to make the sound effect, the telepathic sound effect, but I feel like
the weird screaming scanners thing. Yeah, guy's head blows up. Yeah, definitely. We've returned to explore the inspirations behind your favorite episodes of Star Trek. And this week on the show, we are once again examining a case where a Star Trek episode served as an inspiration to a later episode of another series of Star Trek. And we will talk about that in a little bit. But first, how you doing, besides your weird brain head?
I'm doing okay, you know. I mean, it's a weird world out there right now, but
yeah,
it's, you know, more of the same, I guess.
Yeah, it is.
How you doing?
Well, I'm pretty much the same. Yeah, and just thinking about like Star Trek recently. I listened to a lot of, as a film nerd, I listened to a lot of film podcasts when I had the time. And it seems like the general consensus, if it's not hosted by like two fat white guys, the general consensus is too many Marvel movies and Marvel movies. You know, it's the Scorsese line. Like, it's not cinema. It's it might be amusing and entertaining, but it's not art. And I don't know, man. I gotta really disagree. I think that's tired. My Wired would be endless Jane Austen remakes and
sure.
Jane Austen movies.
Right.
Or Louisa May Alcott. That's I'm sick of that. That's girl superhero stuff, right? I mean, just to use outdated sort of gender ideas.
Sure. What you did you do Emma or whatever that was for your podcast?
Sometime on podcast I talked about Emma, yeah, which
that's what's in my brain right now of that genre.
It was fine. Like, the most recent Emma was fine, but it's like I've seen Emma 5 times now. I've seen Little Women 4 times. And for me, it's like, you know, a young teenage boy grows up with a character, like Captain America, for instance. And you could say, well, that's just genre fiction. Well, people felt that way about the novel, you know, when it first came out. People probably definitely felt that way about the Austen sisters books and things like that. And it's like you have an emotional connection to Lizzie Bennet or whatever. So when you see her on the screen, you're like, yeah, you know, this is a good depiction. You know, I don't know what it is. I just connect with the emotions of the character and what they're trying to accomplish. Well, that's me, motherfucker. That's me with Daredevil or Spider-Man. So I don't know. I can respect you. I don't know why you can't respect the same thing just in spandex.
Well, I think there's just I guess there's a lot going on. One, it's just cool to make fun of right now. But then I guess there's also the other side of it is where it's it is the most popular thing right now.
Well, that's true.
It's fair game, I guess.
Yeah. It's too mainstream. It's too cool. But then when the Dark Knight came out, everybody was pissing themselves over how great the Dark Knight was, and we've really achieved, you know, should this be on the AFI list? You know, should this, you know, it won Oscars for acting, and so I don't get what people's problems are.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like we can just chill on all this right now, and
yeah, people are just
genres exist, right?
Yeah, well, they better, or we're out of a job. Yeah, people are just want to pick on popular things, and I'm not here for it.
Yeah.
Cut to me complaining about Fast and the Furious or something like that.
Yeah. Hey, now, come on.
Fast and the Furious is I'm the Chris Pratt meme where it's I haven't seen any of them, and I think it's too late now for me to catch up.
I actually no, it's not too late. It's never too late. I feel like you could watch them all in a day. I actually, that's when it's the Marvel movies, which I like pretty much all of them. I just I don't really mind so much when people are picking on them. I'm whatever, you know. But I do, for some reason, get really defensive about the Fast and the Furious sometimes.
Yeah,
but I don't know what it is. But I don't know. I really it gets under my skin.
Well, at this point, I'll have to start a podcast in order to justify watching them, I think.
That's the world we live in. I mean, we could do that if you want.
What would you call it? Pod in the family, or it's about family, or you got to get family in there somehow. And then maybe you could do like the lesser works of Vin Diesel, the Witch Hunters, the Boiler
A Man
Rooms.
Apart.
A Man Apart. A Man Apart. Yeah. I really want to know the story of that movie because it's just so. I mean, he's in his niche right now. Like he can do what he does. Very well. The bicep and the car movies, but like, why? Who said like, let's make A Man Apart? Like, did he pay for it himself? Like, I want to know the story behind it.
He seems like the kind of guy who would like go for have a passion project like that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. When you hear stories about him, like obviously there's the Street Sharks thing, but like when you hear stories about like his early time in Hollywood, like he worked a bunch of jobs and he was hustling and he would like rent a car. He would like go to premieres and like rent a nice car or like a limo and then like just pull up to the red carpet and like get out and be like, yeah, what's going on? Hey, and it's not in the movie. Like it has no connection to anything. Just to sort of like drum up like, like buzz for himself. Like, who is this guy?
Yeah, I feel like we're due for a Vin Diesel reevaluation and reappreciation. I think that society is ready. He needs his he's going to keep making Fast and the Furious forever, but I feel like he needs his some good director to take advantage of his particular skill set and make a cool movie with him.
Yeah, and we're missing a James Lipton now, of course, with his passing. Because I think a Vin Diesel actor studio would be so educational and so good.
I do want to know about his process.
Well, speaking of actors who have a process, I guess I don't know if you heard. This isn't Star Trek news, but I don't know if you heard the news that Michael Keaton is being tapped to return to the DC universe, presumably as Batman.
Oh, okay, like live action type thing.
Yeah, so they want the announcement was that he's going to be in the new Flash movie, and when I say new, it's only relative because this movie has been in development for like almost 10 years at this point. Yeah, and they keep changing directors and adding new writers and at this point, they want to have him in it somehow. And I think it's sort of a line towards... And it's weird because they just recently announced that Henry Cavill will return as Superman, but we won't be doing any more Superman-focused movies. They plan to have him be sort of a connecting piece, like a Nick Fury-type character within the ongoing DC universe, the new movies they come up with. But apparently, they're also going to do that with Michael Keaton's Batman. Like, he's going to be in Flash, but he will also appear in other films. So I don't know what they're doing, and I'm like scared, but it's also like, wow, that explosion is beautiful. Like this thing, I feel like this thing is falling apart, but yet I can't look away.
No, yeah, I was gonna say basically the same thing, like because this is gonna be one shared universe, is what we're getting at, maybe.
Well, that's the funny thing is because they, of course, are trying to ape the success of Marvel's, gigantic shared universe, which you can't rush. They planned over a long amount of time. And what they're getting instead is all these films that are not connected at all. And the funny thing is that, DC Comics has a long, long tradition of Elseworlds stories, which is just having... You've got these characters who've been around since the 30s, like they're literally 80 years old, and you put them in a weird situation. So, like, what if Batman was Superman and vice versa? Or what if Batman had a TV for a head or whatever? And you've got these other films now that I think just through scheduling problems and directors leaving and stars leaving, their recent films seem very disjointed. But I think they're kind of steering into it, and they're using the character of Flash, who also has a history in his comics of being in alternate universes and time traveling and stuff, to be maybe the center of this sort of thing. And so maybe maybe they don't want them to be connected. And that's fine. I don't know if people remember like the 80s and 90s, but superhero movies never had anything to do with each other. Every time a superhero popped up, he was the only superhero in the world. Like Green Lantern from was it like 2011? It was more recent than you'd think.
Yeah.
He was just like Green Lantern. It was like, oh wow, this guy is a superhero. That's a new thing. So
which makes
that's what they're doing.
sense for making a movie, you know? Like,
yeah, I mean it's yeah, but Marvel's kind of aced that thing where here's the next Captain America movie, but Black Panther is in it for some reason. So we introduce a guy before his movie even shows up. They've kind of figured out how to chain these things together, but that was never that way before. Like, you know, I feel like, you know, 1989 Batman was huge, but DC really got the ball rolling with the 78 Superman. Like that's kind of where. Just like how Star Wars introduced like the blockbuster that we'll be cursed with for the rest of our lives, Superman introduced like the idea of the marquee superhero film that could make a ton of money, and so we've all been chasing that forever. And then I think Batman really introduced like you can do that and also make a butt ton of money on toys, you know, and Happy
all
Meals and all that sort of thing.
Prince soundtracks.
Prince, hey, careful.
Yeah, I think they've always. It seems like they've done a little bit better when they've made their stuff more standalone. It seems, but I used to be very like, I can't believe what they're doing. Like, why are they trying to copy Marvel? And they were like very reactive, you know, like it always seemed like the next movie they were making was reacting to like the movie before the one that just came out, you know, in terms of, you know, what the reaction was. So it's like, you're never going to get on the right track. But now that you're telling me all this, I like how chaotic this is. And I think they should just stick with that. I think it should make no sense. I think Joaquin Phoenix should show up in one of these, you know?
Yeah, well, yeah. They're bucking the trend, the now established and, you know, very successful trend of this sense of continuity. And I think that, yeah, I mean, who says, except for trillions of dollars, who says that you have to have them all be connected? Sure. Just, you know, just make whatever you make the best movie and don't worry if it fits. It's, you know, historically in the last 15 years or so, I don't think that it's a proven route, but creatively, yeah, I think I'd like to see them go for that.
Yeah. I think they should stick with, let's make this movie that already exists, but with a comic book character, like kind of like how it was like Joker was like, let's make, you know, like Taxi Driver, but this
or Logan like, was Shane or whatever. Yeah, because I feel like they, you know, whether or not you like it, I feel like it was more successful in aping that than like when it's like this like one of the MCU movies is like this movie, because they all kind of feel a little bit more closer to a Marvel, like the MCU style than the genres they lean into. So I feel like that DC should stick with that. Just make like, I don't know, just make some other movie, but put Batman in it. Why not? Make Apocalypse Now, but with Batman. Oh my God. I don't know if I can talk and think at the same time. Well, I definitely can. Yeah, that's perfect. And he is actually, you know what? I think that's already been done. And I think they could just take this. They could take this and just make it a movie. But one of Grant Morrison's first big works in comics was a graphic novel, I think, or a miniseries called Arkham Asylum, A Serious House on Serious Earth. And it's a thing where Batman has a kind of heart of darkness himself. Like he goes, something's wrong. Like somebody broke out at Arkham, and he goes to Arkham, and he is drawn into the madness of everybody there. And all the villains kind of get their shot at him, and he has to kind of go through this gauntlet of insanity. And it was sort of like it formed the basis of the first Rocksteady Batman game.
Yeah.
They didn't lean into all the psychological stuff, but yeah, just him trying to fight his way out of the asylum.
Yeah, that's more like cool combos.
Yeah, right, yeah. Hit Y, yeah. But so instead of him like going up a river and taking a journey, it's more like a maze. You know, he's trying to get out of the labyrinth, you know, that the Minotaur is in.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Yeah, so
okay, we'll pitch it.
Okay, cool. That's what we do here. Most episodes come up with a movie idea.
I guess so. We should save the good stuff. Well, let's get to our subject for today's show. The next generation of Star Trek, and really any Trek from the Roddenberry-Berman era, is treasured by fans for creating a positive and utopian paradise that reassures us that we're going to make it, that humanity will one day conquer its problems and shortcomings and join the galactic community. But being enlightened doesn't mean being more than human, and the characters of Trek still suffer the pangs of old age, the ravages of illness, and the life-altering shocks of sudden tragedy. Humans deal with tragedy the best they can, hopefully successfully, but sometimes beings from other worlds have more complicated and dangerous ways of dealing with grief and loss, and that's the idea explored in the Star Trek The Next Generation episode, Dark Page.
In the darkest corners of the mind,
It's so strange. It's almost as if her brain has shut itself down.
hide the deepest secrets of the past,
I'm going to try and contact her telepathically.
where shocking memories may lurk.
Get away from here!
No!
And the only thing more dangerous than getting in
I want you to sever your connection to your mother.
is getting out.
This isn't real.
Next time on Star Trek The Next Generation.
Did Dark Page ever stand out for you?
No, I didn't remember this one at all.
Yeah.
I remember some of the other ones with Loxana Troy, but not this one.
Yeah.
Which is I think the other ones are just so big and, flamboyant that you remember that.
It's so funny that Loxana Troy is funny to me in a lot of ways. Number one, if you know anything about like her history with the franchise, being Roddenberry's girlfriend and then his wife, and him wanting her to be on this show. She was in the original pilot, The Cage, as number one. And once they rejected the first pilot, like one of the things was not only like, people won't believe a woman on the bridge, but also she's not that good. Like, get her out of there. And Roddenberry really wanted to create a role for her. I mean, it's understandable. You're a producer. It's your show. Like, he wants to put his girlfriend, his wife in there. And so one of the reasons that Nurse Chapel wears a wig, has different hair than Majel Barrett, who played her, and also her hair changes a lot, is because like that's how he snuck her back on the show. Like when she first shows up in, it might be the naked time. It's him like basically like they won't notice. Like she's not. We won't put her in the pilot.
That's incredible.
But like we'll introduce this character later. Yeah, and if you read like Inside Star Trek, they talk about how the producers once they figured out, they're like, oh, okay, yeah. Well, I don't know. It's working. Let's just let it go. So
wow. Okay.
So there's already this idea of and I love Nurse Chapel. I think she's a great character, but she's somebody who the franchise is kind of enduring. Then they bring her back for Star Trek The Next Generation, and now all the characters on the show are like, ugh, this bitch, they're all, she's like a roll your eyes at kind of character. And I just think it's so funny. Like, I don't think they planned that in like a meta sense, but she's this character that the franchise and the characters all have to endure. And yet she's funny. She's really funny a lot of the time.
I think so. Yeah. Nepotism aside, I think she's great.
Hey, nepotism works. But as she goes on as a character, she starts to become a really tragic character, like as the show goes on. And it starts in like, it's like season 5, maybe season 4 or 5, in the episode Half a Life, where she falls in love with David Ogden Stiers' character. And he's like one of these guys that like, once you hit 50 on their planet, you have to go back and get your shot. And that's it for you. And that's a real like kind of moving episode. We've got this episode, obviously, when she shows up on DS9 and she's got telepathic Alzheimer's, and that's kind of a problem. And she gets pregnant and she has to like go to Odo for help. Like she's this character who they definitely went, all right, you can only roll your eyes at her and have Captain Picard hide from her in the holodeck so long. What depths are there in this character? And I think they found some surprising depths.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what they did in this episode with her. Yeah. Was like they do the Picard joke once, and then there's no more comedy with her at all, which I was shocked by, because I just remember all the other episodes that being like the thread throughout the whole thing. But I really like this. Despite what if they said back when she did the pilots that they thought she wasn't very good, like I thought she was awesome in this episode. Like it really got to me this time around. I don't know what it was, but it hit me.
It got to me as well in a way that surprised me because, the seventh season of TNG, there's a lot of going on at this point, right? Like they've perfected the craft. They know they can make one of these in their sleep, but you've got people departing for other shows to develop other shows. You've got new people coming in who haven't really run things before. And so the quality is feast or famine. Like you either get like a really good episode or you get the one where Picard's got a fake son or whatever. Just like not good ones.
Yeah.
And I always held this as being like one of the kind of ones. But yeah, I was really engrossed in it this time. And for an episode that's literally just people talking, it's a bottle episode, in that way. I was surprised at how much we could still wring out of these characters, this 7 years into this show.
Yeah, I think both the Troy characters are kind of unappreciated in the series. I mean, I always
yeah.
I feel like there are certain like Star Trek like memes or whatever that are like known to be true as canon, and like one I always understood from a lot of people was that like episodes based on either of them aren't good.
Yeah.
But I don't agree. I don't know. Well, it's sometimes that's true, but that's true of everyone, I think, to some extent.
Yeah.
Every character.
Yeah.
Some are a little better than others, but like this was a real standout, I think.
It's weird too because TNG and I think a lot of Trek in general is a franchise that has problems with female characters a lot, but also problems with mothers. There's a lot of fathers. There's a lot of like, I hate you, Dad, for whatever reason, and a lot of resentment and a lot of troubled relationships with paternal figures. But there aren't a lot of like mothers. And of course, you could point to like, oh, Beverly Crusher. Yeah, Beverly Crusher, but it's a lot of like, my son. And then like, he's not even on.
Or my dead husband, yeah.
Yeah. He's not even on half the show, like Wesley leaves the show. And so I just really enjoyed the fact that this show was able to dig into the idea of being a mother and losing a child. And also Troy being somebody who is shocked by this revelation, but is also... she's part counselor, but also she's this woman's daughter. So she just wants to know about this person and she wants to help her mom by just getting her to deal with this thing that she's hidden away for a long time. And when you think about it, I'm not saying, don't be sad over your dead child, but it's been like 40 years, right? Like if you assume that Troy's, 35 or so and Kestra was 7 years older, then this is an old hurt. And,
come on, get over it, lady.
Yeah, come on.
No.
Yeah, your kid drowned. Big deal. She went on to a career. She was in an interview with a vampire. She's fine. But I just thought putting that now it's a sci-fi show, right? So we put the sci-fi thing in where they've got this meta consciousness or whatever, where they sort of that's how they deal with tragedy and pain. Beta Zeds is that they can just sort of like store it somewhere and not have to deal with it, but it can sort of come back on them. And I thought that was fascinating because we never dig into how Beta Zeds work. They're just normal people with black eyes and who can read minds.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of questions about the Beta Zeds. Like, they're teaching the Cairn to talk, this new telepathic race they find. How come Beta Zeds can talk? Do you know what I mean? Like, unless you're like half Beta Zed like Deanna, you've got full access to projective telepathy. Like you can talk to people in their heads. So like why would their race ever develop the ability to speak?
Maybe it's like cart before the horse. Like maybe they spoke and then I don't know.
Yeah. Or maybe it's just like they have a character who's going to be on this show for 7 seasons and they needed to talk. But
well, that made a little bit like that clicked with me, or like that makes jives with me. What made a little bit less sense to me, I want to know more about like the Karen, because I was like, if they exclusively do that, why do they have like mouths? That was more confusing to me. But I mean,
they got the the veiny temples are the sides of their heads. Like, I guess their brains are bigger. I actually really love the idea of the Karen, and I wish that they'd come back. When I used to play the Star Trek RPG, I played a Karen character for a while.
Oh, that's cool.
And it was set, after TNG, so presumably the Karen had joined Starfleet. And they'd learned English, because apparently you have to talk English to join the Federation. It's like, what? She mentions that at the beginning. It's like, well, they have to learn to speak, because, we all have to speak, because that's how the Federation works. But I played a Karen character, and he didn't know how to speak, but they had developed a technology that he had a telepathic projector that could project his thoughts in hologram form. So he talked with pictures, basically. So he could, give you a thumbs up or whatever as an affirmative, or he would just communicate totally visually by projecting images. Oh, you know what? It was actually a play-by-email game. I'm a huge nerd. It was a play-by-email game that I did this for. And I picked it specifically because I wanted a challenge, to hone my writing skills. How would I describe how this guy is trying to describe what's going on?
That is cool. You think they could just learn sign language or something?
Absolutely, yeah. Although we already did a sign language episode first season, though.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, with what's his name? Remember, he had the 3 Pointer Sisters that helped him talk, but they all got vaporized at the beginning, and so for the rest of the episode, did you guys cover that on?
I thought we did. I put that out of my memory.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The guy had a big red beard. And,
oh yeah, he had a crew with him, right?
Yeah, and the crew gets wiped out, and then he's like, "Oh no, I can't ambassador anymore because I can't talk." And they're like, "No, I mean, just learn." Oh, that's right. The solution was he taught the 2 warring sides sign language together, and that's how they were going to bring everybody together.
That's nice. Yeah. Classic Star Trek is we got to learn how to talk to these guys, or else
right.
Everything will collapse.
Yeah. And then it was the 80s, so there's an accessibility kind of message there too. It's like everybody should, learn a little sign language.
Yeah. Good on them. Good on you, Star Trek.
So you got the Beta Zeds, they talk for whatever reason. I think it's fascinating that, Troy was originally pitched as a Spock type character. I'm not sure if it was when they were doing TNG or if it was originally from the Phase 2 sort of notes, but she was going to be this very cerebral character like Spock. And then later they went the complete opposite way, which seems like a no-brainer to us with the benefit of history, but I think was a real revolutionary idea for them. So you've got a character who is, also a hybrid race and is telepathic or empathic. But then you've got the same thing with her parental situation. Her mother instead of father is an ambassador who married a human and also is kind of a human weeb, kind of has a thing for some reason, just, just fell in love with a human and is like, yeah, okay, I'll live, 1 foot in, 1 foot out of this sort of world. And I think that, I don't know, I'm sure you get it in the books, but if we had dug more into Lwaxana Troi and her relationship with Deanna, I would have loved to see more like we see in Nepenthe, which we're going to talk about, what their home life was like, and it was like being in kind of a mixed race house like that.
Yeah. It was cool that, just talking about the 2 episodes, that that they mirrored each other in such a way that it almost did shine some light on that a little bit more, assuming that, they're at least somewhat similar. I love that a lot, that it almost had you're seeing maybe not the home life, but just the generations go down. To me, that was cool, as opposed to just oh, we got the kid here, here's
yeah.
You wanted to see this character you loved, kid, here you go. It actually, I don't know, it just tracked to me generationally, and I thought that was cool.
Yeah. I also like the fact that, having being an empath would obviously be a huge benefit to your job as a counselor. But I like the fact that Troy, is not somebody who's going to be, leaping over a railing to defend Captain Picard and shooting a phaser and whatever. But she's everybody on the Enterprise D. It's a flagship. They're all the best at what they do. And she is just so skilled at reading people and talking with people. And I like the idea that she's got, word kung fu. Like you're not gonna out talk her. You're not gonna fool her, by lying to her about your feelings or whatever, even without her powers. She's the perfect person to do this Inception heist, where they go into like Lwaxana Troy's brain during the episode, because immediately you get this. There's a lot of things that are kind of like Inception in this. Like you get these like defense mechanisms, like the captain's like, "Oh no, we're going to call it off. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine." And she's like, "No, I don't get that." And then, she walks into the room and sees, an image of her father, and she's not like, "Oh my God, my daddy's back." Right away, she's like, don't do this, mother. I know what you're doing. And she's still emotionally affected by it, but she knows, like, she's on mission. Like, she knows that these things are going to happen.
And it's cool because it's like, you get the idea that it's like her mother knows, like, what would stop her, like, oh, she trusts the captain, so him talking to her. Yeah, I thought that
and
was
all
like
else
an
fails,
extra
just
layer.
sick a wolf on her.
Yeah, we also know she's afraid of wolves. Like, who's not,
right.
though?
Yes,
yeah.
of course. I like that you can't trick her. And also, like, okay, so I guess Troy maybe has better training, but Tuvok has done this a dozen times on Voyager. There's always some problem, and Tuvok's like, "I'll go into their mind. It could be dangerous." And it's always screws up completely, and some weird new thing happens. But, like, mostly Troy just goes in and goes, I didn't get it the first time. Got it the second time. And it's like, what's wrong with Tuvok? He's supposed to be like a Vulcan, he's supposed to be able to mind meld with people, but he's always screwing up and things are happening.
Yeah.
Somebody's brain is going to explode.
It's not as good. Yeah, well, he doesn't have the people skills that Troy has.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
Yeah, yeah. I like what you were saying about, like, just her ability, not like her powers, but just her, like, ability to talk to people. Like, I feel like that's, again, now it seems like maybe a no-brainer, but it seems like a cool idea, like an original idea, to be like, we're making this space show about traveling around, we're gonna fight aliens, but, like, one of our main people is just, like, someone who's, like, good at, like, relating to people. Like, that's her job.
If we're gonna go out and talk, to people, we're gonna turn enemies into friends, we're gonna solve conflicts, then talking is a superpower, and Captain Picard has it, but Deanna Troi has it too, and so I love the fact that, like, she usually can't, like, the guy at the beginning's like, "You have a need," and she's like, "I'm sorry," like, she can't be flustered usually. There's a first, I know you've seen this episode, Skin of Evil, the episode with the oil slick.
Yes.
And they're trying to get to Troy and this other crew member in this crash shuttle, and so half the episode is them arguing with the oil slick, and the other half is the oil slick going back and talking to Troy. And even though she's hurt and she's scared, as soon as he comes back, she immediately is like, "All right, let's talk about this. So you got a problem, like you're mad, like your people left you behind," and like, she's working on the problem for her end using, like, her superpower.
Yeah, and it's different. Like you mentioned, like, talking to people like Picard, but I love how different it is from like there's a satisfaction in, like, the episodes where, like, Picard or, like, Kirk or whoever is like, all right, now's the time where they totally own the aliens and, like, call them out, diplomatically, and, like, pull some tricks on them. But I like that her version of talking to them is like, or, like, even the other characters, is not to, like, best them, even though sometimes it is, but more to, like, connect with them, we're not to one up them, basically. Even with Argus or whatever his name is, like, it was definitely a trick, but just a different approach than when Picard goes down to talk to the oil slick, where he's just like, we're gonna piss him off, or whatever.
He does jam on him, and the whole thing is that they leave him, on the planet at the end. He's like, "I'm not taking you anywhere." But also, like, Argus is an immortal being, and I can imagine Picard they put up a buoy at the end of the thing that goes
I
on
hope
the planet
so,
and says,
yeah.
like, don't come here. But also maybe he reported it to Starfleet and said, maybe we'll go check on him in 50 years or something like that. Whenever the Romulans are kind of like that, because it's always fun to jam on the Romulans. But then at the end, you offer to help them out. So like that episode where they find the Iconian probe thing or something, and Carolyn Seymour is being a real dick to him the entire time. And then he ends up on their bridge, and both, the Enterprise and the Warbird are falling apart because of this virus. And he gets beamed off of it, and he gets to like get the last word in and jam on her. But then as soon as he gets back, he's like, send him the thing, give him the antivirus. They learned their lesson. We don't want him to die.
Right. But we get the like smug satisfaction of
we gotta get that
of watching Picard tell them who's better.
Yeah, right. That's got to be a thing. I was not familiar with the song that her dad randomly sings to her. And it should be noted that Mick Byram, the guy that plays her dad, is he's a vocal artist.
Oh, it's great.
Singer. But yeah, he sings that song, and I wasn't familiar with it. But apparently, it's like a Johnny Cash type song where it starts off kind of nice about how he wants to be down in the valley with his sweetheart, but as we go on, we learn that this guy's like in jail, and he's like, he's telling her like, please send me like a letter, and you can mail it to the Birmingham jail, and I'm a slave, I feel like a slave, and so there's
That's
weird
what he
touch
sang to his kid.
yeah, there's a weird touch of melancholy to the song.
It's a real song though.
Oh yeah, it's a real.
Oh,
I don't even know who wrote it. It's it's a standard.
Okay. Well, yeah, no, it's a jammer. I teared up. I cried.
Yeah,
I'm kind of a softie when it comes to like people singing songs to their loved ones in films.
Okay.
Like I feel like it's a cheap gag, actually, not gag, but just a cheap shot. Because like even sometimes when it's not good, like it makes me cry. I don't know. People singing, and so I don't know. I can't objectively look at this scene because it tugged on my heartstrings too much.
Yeah. Well, you're a sensitive guy. A musician has to be.
Yeah. So, yeah, the music was it was a pretty powerful moment in this episode for me. And a thing that wasn't a big focus, like her dad. I don't really know much about her dad. I don't remember if the show gets into that a lot.
I don't think it really does. I think they leave that to extended media or just like the character Bible. But yeah, she was, he married her mother, who I don't know if she was an ambassador at that point, but she always says that she's got this huge title. She's the princess of the 12 rings or whatever. Yeah. And I'm not sure how he died either, but it's funny that she could deal, that didn't go into her metaconscious. Like she could deal with that tragedy of losing her husband, maybe because she had to raise her daughter alone. But this weird thing that happened, this death of this child that she feels so responsible for, is something that just gets put away. And I like the fact, I think a lot of good Star Trek episodes could be any type of show. They could be a Western, they could be Little House on the Prairie, they could be a modern day thing. It just has a sci-fi edge. Like the part where she's going through her mom's stuff and looking for the clues. And then they're like, let's look at her journal. And then they're like, there's parts missing. Oh, she tore pages out of her diary. Like, what were those pages? Like, everything has like a real world analog. It's just, we're using telepathy because it's, a sci-fi situation. They don't stray too far from the sort of dramatic thing that would work on, I think, any hour-long drama.
Yeah, that was initially too the most appealing thing about Star Trek to me still is that it's like, this episode is like this, and this kind of like we were talking earlier about certain, comic book movies. It's like, let's do this, but as a superhero movie. And I guess sure, that's sort of the premise for our show even. So,
well, yeah, I guess maybe I shouldn't poke too much at that, but yeah.
We could have done this episode on its own, and I'm sure there's like a lot of great analogs for that. Yeah.
I think that, there's a very basic conflict here. A woman feels guilt and trauma over the death of a child. And, there's not a lot of action. I mean, it takes, 5 acts to kind of spool that out. But I think that it's understandable. It's solid. It's something that I think can resonate with people. And so, you don't need to have them doing loop-de-loops in the ship and fighting Romulan warbirds or something like that to have a good episode of Trek. Like, some of the best episodes of Trek are just like, they're just talking, they're just heading somewhere, and they're just trying to figure something out.
Yeah, I don't think not all shows like this are okay with that either, like you wouldn't get just like such a basic, simple family drama like this, I mean, it still has the sci-fi edge to it, but, the restraint to not be like, and we have to have we have to have some explosions happening, in the B story or something,
Yeah.
that they dedicated it all to this was, I think, great.
There's some very basic, screenwriting in terms of story structure that just, works. Like, again, I don't think it has to be complicated. There's that part in the Arboretum where they're talking about, I don't know how, but the idea of heaven comes up. And so the Karen are like, what's that? And she's like, oh boy, how do I explain this? And then Troy just sort of beams it into their minds. And I think it really, it sort of evokes the idea of, loved ones being in a better place if people in the 24th century even believe in heaven anymore. And what do Beta Zeds think heaven is, I wonder? Or is she trying to communicate the human idea of heaven?
Probably, or maybe just maybe they're now there's a more general, well, I guess they say a lot though, we don't believe that. But then I guess they have different religious celebrations on the ship.
Yeah,
probably
the Karen are like clouds and harps. Weird, but I got it. Okay.
Yeah, they're very accepting of it. So whatever it was probably a very
they must
good
have something similar. Yeah. But it just immediately brings out that idea of whatever they believe in the 24th century. They do want to think that their loved ones are in a better place. And that just foreshadows where we end up. And then in the 3rd or 4th act, when Picard comes to Deanna while she's looking through the stuff, and he's like, it doesn't look good. And Troy shares her traumatic memory of her dad dying. It sort of stays on theme of that. We all carry this pain, and she's sharing this thing that happened to her. And they're almost there. I feel like they could have put it together and went, well, something happened. Clearly, somebody died or something like that. They're just hitting on the edges of it. They're so close to what this mystery is. It's it's good structure.
Yeah, I don't know how to describe it, but it's I almost want to use the word maybe comfortable. You know what I mean? It's it unfolds in such a nice way that it's a mystery that's kind of easy to follow, but you've almost seen it before, but it's it feels good. And just the emotional beats of it all connect with me really well. So
I really like the fact that this is a something screwy is going on with telepathy episode, but it's not somebody's getting mind raped like it would usually be.
Yeah, totally.
And I also think the show is a little self-aware in that I think it plays into your expectations of that, because the guy that they got to play the dad, the male Cairn, is, I don't know, he's kind of handsome, but he's also got a kind of a sinister look about him. He kind of looks like a Jim Carrey character.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what I knew this guy from.
Yeah.
I was looking on IMDb, and I was like, okay, he seems like a sinister figure, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they cast him well for that, because it works as a good misdirection. And then, he says, you have a need. And then later he comes to her office, and she has to explain what privacy is to him. And you're like, uh-oh, these guys don't know what privacy is? Where's this going to lead? And then we have that one act break where he comes into sickbay, and all he has to do is just go, hello, I'm here to see your mother. But instead he's got this weird look on his face, and you're like, this is it. They're going to pull the trigger.
It's he's darker.
He's going to mind assault her. Yeah.
Yeah. What's going on? You're like, what? Yeah. It's funny you say that, because he is well cast, because then all the other scenes with him where he's not like that, and he's normal or whatever. I'm like, I think I even audibly said to Kayla as we were watching this together, I was like, I like this guy. He seems nice.
He's doing his best.
Yeah. So yeah,
He's a single dad.
Yeah, exactly. They walk that line very well between like seeming nice, but also maybe being a massive creep.
He is a single dad. That's interesting. I wonder if there was something that was cut out of the script or just streamlined where he is talking about like how presumably his wife died, and sharing maybe, in his scanner's way, like that sort of memory, like, oh, this is a private
like that
memory of
is
my
a trigger
own.
Or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would make sense because it is weird when Kristen Dunst or whatever is like, I make her sad. And I was like, just because you're a little girl? Like,
yeah. And we get the explanation, or we assume that, she's been around the block, Lexana Troy, a couple times. And so maybe this is heavy lifting telepathically for her to help these guys. But yeah, maybe it was detecting that. That's my headcanon now, like detecting that tragedy in him and in Kirsten Dunst, at the loss of this mother/wife is what sort of sets it off. Instead, it's just, oh, she's got blonde hair as well, I guess. And she fell in the lake. She
splashed in the water.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That works too, I suppose.
I kind of just took it as that, but also because it's so stressful and like they were in each other's minds, like he might have like bumped up against that headspace, and been like, what's this? She's like, I'm not going to talk about that,
Yeah. That'd be a useful thing to have for a telepathic species, because like Troy explains the concept of privacy like it's not something that is alien to her, like the Beta Zeds don't have it. So they must, even though they can hear each other's thoughts, they must have some place, shields or some place that they can put things that they don't necessarily want to share with everybody, this idea of a metaconscious. And so if you're going to go into somebody else's mind that you're not familiar with, you'd need something like a filter where you can stick stuff. It reminds me of like, YouTube, like gross out videos, or like those scare videos where you're watching like a dog play with a ball and then suddenly it's like, like a, face jumps out or something like that.
Yeah.
Like they have like a 7-second delay or something in their brains that just lets them go, oh, okay, gonna click away from that. Don't want any part of that.
Instead they're actually like, try not to laugh at this.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. It's dangerous digging around in other people's minds. Anything else you could think of to say about this episode? And I'll get you started. I like the fact that Data gets to put one little line in there where he's like, "I dream too." It's like, thanks, Data. I don't know if that helps, but
we remember
do get to
that
reference
man.
Data's dreaming. Yeah.
I didn't need Data in this episode. I know a lot of people would, never say that, but we didn't need Data. I would. I like that once this became the focal point of the story with the daughter and everything, that like by the end, like we didn't even figure out, like I said as they were flying away in the end, and Kayla laughed at me, but I was like, what? So what's the deal with the other guys, the Karen? Like, what happened with them?
Well, you'll never see them again.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
not that it didn't feel like any loose threads really or anything, because they were just kind of the device to move things along. But I was kind of curious, like, yeah, so what happened? Like they finished up or what?
Presumably, yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it seems like fine now.
Kirsten Dunst, I don't think was ever in danger. I don't know how handling animals on a set works, but even in that one shot where she's petting it, you can tell that they're comped together. So she was never in frame with the wolf at the same time.
Oh, that's good to know.
I thought that was kind of interesting. Like, you'd think if you're a Hollywood animal handler, you've probably got some tame wolves, but maybe they didn't want to chance it with a child actress.
Yes, that's fair. I like the wolf. That was cool. Good on them for getting a wolf on the ship. That was a cool image.
It's something really basic, and they didn't like stick a horn on its head or paint it pink or something like that. It's just, it's a wolf. There's just a wolf, the big bad wolf.
That'd been great if they put it in that like dog costume from the original series.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that in a second. And also, or they didn't have the little chow or whatever it was. Like, oh my god, this dog seems familiar, but it's trying to kill me.
Yeah, no,
I think
Troy knows what a wolf is, you know?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, she's half human. We'll talk about this in the next segment, but I always wonder why. I don't think that Troy and Riker had to get married. You know, I liked the idea that the series opened. They had clearly had this association before. And then as the show goes on, they develop, you know, a co-working relationship, and they really learn to be like very, very good friends. Like this is the person that she would go to. She's going to eat chocolate and complain about her problems, you know, Riker. And of course,
Yes.
the movies, you know, immediately stuck them together. And there's nothing, I mean, it's fine. I think it also works, but I like the idea that there was something in their past. But I feel like with popular entertainment, you've always got to fire that gun. You know, they got to get together.
Yeah.
And, of course they do.
I felt like the show naturally went like what's more interesting, you know, and they had like the thing with Worf, which I thought was cool. Makes sense that, you know, if they're going to be in different shows or, you know, the movies are, he's kind of showing up, like that wouldn't be a long running thing. But I thought that was more interesting. But then, yeah, it's exactly what you said, where the movies feel like almost like we're playing the hits that you love from the show, and we know you love them as a couple, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think we did it all. So let's take a break for a word from our sponsors, and we'll be back with more backtrekking.
Hi, I'm Mikan Hana.
And I'm Caliban.
And we're the hosts of the Sailor Noob podcast. I'm the expert.
And I'm the noob.
You're talking into the wrong end of the microphone.
Aye, aye.
Okay, every week we watch a new episode of Sailor Moon and learn about monsters, fashion, food, culture, and of course, the sailor warrior of love and justice, Sailor Moon.
All right, now, what is her rank? Is she an admiral or a rear admiral?
Okay, shh. The ad's almost over. We're a couple of magical people, and every week we Moon Prism Power make up a new episode.
Steady as she goes.
Please stop that. Sailor Noob is available every Friday on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Shiver me timbers. Okay, we're back, and it's time to talk about the Trek side of this equation. When TV shows are canceled or they go off the air, the characters and the worlds that we fall in love with disappear, and programs deal with that in different ways. Sometimes it's implied that, you know, business will continue as usual, sometimes literally, like in the case of the finale of Cheers. And sometimes you just want to wipe the slate clean, like when they blew up Walnut Grove at the end of Little House on the Prairie. Star Trek: The Next Generation had something of a soft end. The show suggested that our characters would continue their work on the Enterprise D, and in fact, we see their ongoing service in the 4 TNG films on the Enterprise E. But the story of that crew came to a bittersweet end with 2002's Star Trek Nemesis, and many fans were disappointed with the uncertain and unnerving conclusion of the TNG crew's story. Some of those characters, however, namely Captain Picard, Commander Riker, and Commander Troy, would see their stories continue in future Trek shows, bringing our familiar characters new tragedies and new triumphs, which we see in the Star Trek Picard episode, Nepenthe.
I'm in over my head.
You helped Picard and Synthetic escape.
When I left Earth, I had a plan, I had a ship, I even had a crew. Now I've lost them all.
Now tractor lock to a Borg cube full of Romulans.
They don't want us. They want her. This whole thing, how do I know it's not another game?
You can't trust me. Hello, Will.
Gooey, I don't
Yes.
like Star Trek Picard.
Okay.
There.
Okay.
I said it.
Wow.
And I want to be different. I'm not like the other fat white guy complainers. I want to differentiate myself from them in that what they complain about mostly, just barring the sexist and racist complaints that they make, is that New Trek isn't optimistic. And I would point them to a TNG first season episode called Conspiracy, where they blow a guy's fucking head up. The show
Pretty
has
sick.
always dabbled in darkness. It has nothing to do with like the optimism. I don't know what they're complaining about, but what I want to complain about is the lack of basic conflict like we see in an episode like Dark Page that I think is missing for the most part from an episode like Nepenthe, which in a lot of ways is a very similar episode. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. I can get behind that. I feel like I like Picard enough. Just especially, I like this episode enough just because it's not for any like I don't know. The reasons aren't very good, but it's like I just like to see Picard hanging out with Riker making pizza. Like
sure.
that's that aspect I like.
Pizza,
But I totally dig your point in that, like, the conflict that exists in the show, maybe it's just because it's meant to be so ongoing and, like, kind of there's so many threads, but it feels like kind of directionless a little bit, you know?
There's a
like,
weird...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go. Go.
I was just going to say, like, there's a point in this episode where, like, specifically where, like, Troy is, like, given Picard, like, a talking to a little bit. Yeah. I was like, this didn't even feel like a conflict like a minute ago. Like that this was like the point, but now it is, I guess. I don't know. But it's hard to keep track of, not that it's like complex, but it's just hard to like totally grasp like what the characters are concerned about sometimes.
Yeah, where this is an episode where it kind of comes, there's a thing running through the whole series where Picard needs to be taken down a notch or whatever. And that's one of those things that is on like a colored note card on a cork board, but I don't think it tracks through the whole thing. Like as the series opens, he, he's wallowing, but he's gone into self-imposed exile because he tried to do this amazing heroic thing and nobody else wanted to do it and it didn't work out. And I think that the show wants to turn that into, well, it's because it's about his ego and he thinks, he's the captain, but he's not the captain anymore. And I don't understand the source of that. I don't think that's a invalid thing to charge Picard with, that, he's not in charge of things anymore and he needs to learn to rely on people. I think that's a valid lesson, but I don't know where it comes from. I don't see the beginning of it in the early episodes of Star Trek Picard necessarily.
So then the other thing that the other conflict that I feel like his character, or at least that got brought up in that conversation I was just talking about, is like that he needs to be like approachable or something. He needs to be the Picard, figure to them. But it's like, to me, when I watch the whole show, I feel like he always is. Like, I don't know, he always seems warm and open and, you could trust him. So that to me doesn't track.
She's a teenage girl, and their admonishment of him is that he needs to not treat her like a crewman, but like a girl, and be something of a father figure. And of course, that draws on his famous hatred of children. Do you know what I mean? Which I think is like a really cold take by the time we reach 2399. Like, we get it. Like, he doesn't, that was established 40 years ago in the character's timeline that he doesn't like kids or whatever. Is it really still a problem that he can't?
No, that does not feel like a problem to me.
No, because he's so good with Daj, and
yes,
to the point where she dies for him. Like, she's ready to like kick the shit out of a bunch of Romulans for him, and now suddenly, like, I guess he's not being nice enough to Soji. I don't see it. But then again, I think it's a card on a corkboard. It's tough.
Yes.
It's tough to carry so many character arcs through 10 episodes, much less more. And there's a weird freedom, I think, in the way that old Trek never really returns to anything. Like, I don't prefer it. The old way of doing TV shows is just to reset. So last week basically didn't happen, But Trek has always been good, I think, about at least letting things that happen be integrated into somebody's character. And so hopefully they can return to it, or hopefully like Data saying, "Oh, I dream," like, small thing. But the next time we get close to something that's adjacent to whatever that problem was, maybe that character will act a little different. And I feel like in CBS Trek, yes, we've got a shorter amount of time, but supposedly they're supposed to be, we're carrying this stuff through. But I don't feel like they do. I feel like characters take on whatever it is that is bothering them, whatever tragedy they're experiencing. They scream about it, and then they're okay. And I feel like the writers are always trying to return the characters to the baseline of what we know about them, like, going in, which is ironic because it's a serial show. Like, old Trek is supposed to reset every episode, and yet it accretes like these character details. And new Trek is supposed to be, you're going to see a journey, and we don't. Characters just kind of act a certain way until it's time for them to act a different way so we can like advance the story. Sorry to keep talking, but there's a
No, you're
Netflix show.
good.
There's a Netflix show called Another Life, which is like a crazy bug nuts sci-fi type show, which is not good, but it's like schlocky, which makes it entertaining. And
Okay.
on that show, it's like a bunch of like hot, like 20 somethings, piloting this spaceship, and something's going wrong every week. And it's so crazy because as soon as they fix whatever the problem was, like, okay, everybody's heads are screwed back on. Oh no, the ship is turned into like cotton candy. And they'll do that in like the last 2 minutes, and then they have to go into that in the next episode. And nothing ever affects them they don't grow as characters. They're all just bouncing off each other and screaming at each other like every episode. And that's how I feel about Picard sometimes.
Yeah. I feel like, I don't know, it would at least be a little bit like the episode premise here, like I feel like would just work as like a normal episode of Star Trek. Like if they just cut off the beginning and end, or like when all the other stuff is happening, and just be like focus more on what they're trying to do, with the whole point of them going to, to visit the Riker family, and like what the emotional core of that was. Yeah. But instead be like, I feel like you could still do that, and it could still be a part of like the progressing story. But I feel like, yeah, because it's tied so heavily to like what led them there and what they're leading to.
Yeah,
it is a bit disjointed. Even like it just stands out even more when it's like when they're like calling out Picard, or like, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's a weird flow to me.
Yeah, but as a standalone episode, I think it does work really well. It's just we have to accept so much to get here. Like we never, and you don't have to seed it. You don't have to plant Chekhov's guns everywhere. But he never really talks about the Troy Rikers. And then when they're in trouble in the cube, and they've got this device that can send them anywhere, he immediately thinks, "That's right. Put this phone number in. It's an old number. I think it still works." He immediately thinks, "Go to Troy and Riker, like they can help me," which I understand, but it's never really set up in any way. It's a good thing that he knew the coordinates for that planet, I guess. They just sort of like appear there, and they kind of disappear at the end. And I don't, like I said, like I love everything that happens, in the episode between the Troy Rikers and Picard, but it really does feel like crowd pleasing. It does feel like, well, people are going to love this. They're going to love seeing Troy and Riker interact with the captain again. And I do, but like why is this in this show? Like what does it matter? Except, I guess Riker comes back at the end because they did plant that he's on active reserve. So that means that he can command an armada of 200 ships. Yeah, that are all the same.
No, that was dope. admit that was sick. Captain Riker.
Captain.
No,
yeah, that's pretty cool.
Again, I feel like I'll just always go back to this, but imagine if it didn't have that specific connection that the last episode had, and the last one they got out of it or whatever, and this episode just starts for some other reason, and they just go there for, like,
yeah, it could be anything.
I need their help for any reason, and instead of like that specific, kind of contrived way they got there,
Yeah, but it isn't anything. He leaves Elnor behind to die. Hugh does die. Like, he just met Hugh. He's like, "Oh my God, Hugh is so amazing," and then like
and Hugh did nothing.
No, and I know that like Sochi's important, but he just abandons everybody and just gets out of there. Like, couldn't Elnor just cut everybody's head off? Like, and then until Rios gets the ship free.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer that it was like, hey, we're bringing back this character. Like, I was all on board of like, let's explore some of these random side characters from one episode, and then also, hey, we're introducing these cool new characters, and then those two, it's like they're almost nowhere to be found in most episodes.
Yeah, the show's got a problem. Speaking of side stories, let's close off the side stories before we go back to the planet Nepenthe and its bunnycorns. Speaking of the dog with a horn on his head, the bunnycorns were apparently a reference or an homage to the dog from the Enemy Within in the original series episode. That's why they're bunny corns.
Oh, okay. Cute.
Cute, but isn't it Riker that says that we don't hunt animals for food anymore? And then he sends his daughter out to shoot bunnies.
You know,
I'm a jerk. Anyway,
Riker's a hypocrite.
Back on the Borg cube, of course, Elnor is running scared, and I like the idea of, okay, we got the principal out of there. Now what? Like, we're trapped on a Borg cube full of Borgs, and there's some pretty good payoff to that. Again, I don't know why they needed to feel where they felt they needed to just wipe out not only Hugh but all of his XBs that are his friends, and then they basically kill all the XBs, or at least most of them, in the next episode when they all get sucked out into space. It's like this show's like it just has to thrive on tragedy for some reason. Like there were some dark, cruel parts of Discovery, but a lot of this is very cruel. Yeah,
and I another thing that I thought was such a cool premise was like, hey, we're gonna get into like what it's like being an ex-Borg. We've got 7 of 9, so we're gonna kind of do that some more. But I guess they touched on it, but I think in a similar way that you mentioned, where it felt like a note on the board, where it's like, yeah, here's some of the Borg therapy, but it's really just to move the plot forward.
And also to reinforce the villainy of Larissa.
Just to be cruel, yeah.
Yeah, who, by the way, is... Narek sucks. I don't know who Narek is even for. I don't know. That character just... I don't like that character. I like Larissa a lot more, although she has much more one-dimensional character. And, of course, they, spoilers, kill her at the end of the thing. I guess she can come back, but... for her, like, they give... That's something else. Again, corkboard. There's one part of one episode near the end where we suddenly info dump all of Larissa's backstory and you go, oh, she's totally a tragic character. But you didn't give us any of that. She was just trying to, like, make out with her brother and just murdering all these, like, named characters that you know. And then suddenly it's like, oh, she's tragic. And then before you can even interface with that, like, Seven kicks her off a cliff, saying this is for Hugh when she wasn't even there when he was killed. So I guess somebody must have told her that she was killed. So like the character on this show is crazy. Going to the La Serena, that's even worse because like all those characters just act however they have to act to be A, kind of like snarky like a modern TV show is, and B, to do whatever they have to do in the moment. So like we get that like Chris Rios, the captain, is... he's on the dirtier side of the Federation or the galaxy. But, like, didn't he, like, have sex with Agnes, like, a couple episodes before? And now she's... And not that that means that they're married, but, like, now she's feeling bad and it's clearly something's wrong with her psychologically, and then she's throwing up cake, and he's just like, yeah, whatever.
And
then he's interacting with Raffi, and Raffi is like... later on, he's like, okay, Agnes... I think Raffi's the bad guy. I think that she's maybe unknowingly, we don't know, but I think that she's like the traitor here. Then he finds out, no, they're totally wrong. That went nowhere. I don't even know why they put that in the show. And then the very next episode is the one where he opens up to her about this backstory with his captain and, meeting Beautiful Flower and the people from like Cabellius. And it's like, well, what is it? Does he trust her or not? Nothing tracks, is what I'm saying.
If you watch like an episode like kind of like we did out of context, like it doesn't even, I didn't even think about the fact that they were like maybe romantic or not or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Like, I forgot about that existing basically.
But this is a 10-hour movie. Like everything is supposed to flow into something else. If you watch Dark Page and you forgot that Troy dated a guy that looked kind of like the Karen guy, and he, gave her a foot massage or something like that. It doesn't really matter, but this is like things that literally happened a couple hours ago in the world of the show.
I feel like we're going so hard on this, but I guess I wanted to say that I feel like a show like TNG or Deep Space Nine do a lot better job of actually remembering those things, even though they like to forget them, I don't know. I feel old.
Hey, just do you? This show made you feel old?
just complaining about, being
yeah.
like, Deep Space Nine really did it right,
Yeah. We got to wrap this up.
like
I'm doing a show with Doomcock next, so.
Well, yeah. Also as bad because of SJWs.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
We got to get rid of those SJWs.
Get that in there.
You ruin everything. Why doesn't the Federation have cloaks now in 2399?
Yeah.
We're friends with the Klingons, right? And the Romulans are basically defunct. Like, they still have a government, I guess, but we get the idea that they're, in trouble. So those are the two races that we had this treaty with where we can't use cloaks. We should just have, like, cloaks everywhere. Everybody should have a cloak.
Are the Klingons worried about it, maybe? I don't know. It was part of the Romulan treaty, right? I don't know.
I think it was, yeah, maybe you're right. But I think at some point, that was the whole thing. Like, that was an escalation thing. Like, we won't have any cloaks because that's your guys' thing.
Yeah. Star Trek is like a little broken, I guess, right now. Like the world is like a little bit out of sorts, maybe.
Well, that's something I want to dig into because I don't know if we were promised or not, but when we see Picard, it's the first show set, where the main timeline is in the future of Berman Trek, so it's the first time that we are actually seeing the future of the future. And I think that a lot of people assume that we were going to get a real idea of the world. Like, they're scenes set on Earth, and within the Federation. And I came away, like, not having way more questions than answers about how the Federation even works at this point. Clearly, they're trying to suggest there's some sort of malaise, that the Federation has maybe lost its ideals. I don't know if that trickles down to the people in it. But we see, workers on Utopia Planitia, and it's like, okay, do people volunteer for jobs, or does everybody work like it is communism? If you got robots, can't they do all the work?
Right.
You see the odd Starfleet officer here and there, and they're all kind of like, they don't seem like upstanding officers. They're all kind of like crappy, weird people. They go to Free Cloud, which is apparently like a planet that's like, oh, there's no rules here. And it's like, wait, there's no rules in the Federation. Like, can't you just, watch drug porn or something like that? Like, in the Federation? Like, what? In a society where everything's okay, what's going on Free Cloud that you can't do other places?
You don't want to know.
Yeah, I guess I don't want to know.
They just wanted to have a Star Wars planet,
Well, you answered my question. We can't get any content out of that. You shut me down with the one true answer, I guess.
I feel like it's kind of a just minor thing, but it maybe encapsulates like the show is that, like, okay, they came up with the cool idea of like this story in this episode mirroring something from Dark Page, and they like remember, like, I think it was a nice detail that their kid was named Kestra and all that stuff. Like, oh, that's like a neat little touch, and like it's not like cheap or whatever. But then in a different episode, there's just Spot 2.
I wasn't going to bring up Spot 2. I promised myself.
We don't need to talk about it,
but it came up. It came up organically. Speaking of Star Wars, you've got a small, rough and tumble ship, which is being trapped by a tractor beam and finally gets let go, but it's part of a bigger plan by the bad guys to track them to the location that they're going to. And I wrote in my notes, Star Wars much? And then later on, Agnes says, we could hide in a comet, but it turns out to be a Gormagander, which is a space whale, which is like the scene in Empire Strikes Back where they hide in the asteroid and they're in a big worm. Star Wars much? Like, you're right. There's a lot of Star Wars in this for some reason.
Well, I think that's just like it sounds a little like this criticism has been said before a million times, but it does feel like that is kind of part of the new like objective of Star Trek is like it's gotta be cool and big and sexy,
You know what else it has to be? Barfy. There are 3 barfs in this episode. Agnes barfs when she's shown the admonition. Then later she barfs up all the cake that she ate. And then at the end when she destroys the tracker, which, again, just tracking the story, I know that it's supposed to be kind of a secret that she's like the traitor or whatever, but they set up literally 40 minutes earlier, have this tracker, and then she deactivates it 40 minutes later. Like, you're not using your 10-hour movie premise to its fullest, but she barfs up white foam, then. So it's like, well, we got barf. We achieved barf, everybody.
They have her
first
barf
fuck in Star Trek, first barf in Star Trek.
She's all about barfing and like quivering. She's always quivering or whatever.
Yeah,
like her mouth is always going nuts.
I do think that she's a good actress, but they definitely just said, "Give us more. Let's see you just literally vibrate through the floor." Yeah,
she's like vibrating in half the scenes, but she's good at like I couldn't do that on command, so.
We'll shoot you full of insulin or something like that, and you'll have a seizure. All right, so let's close that off. Anything else to say about the cube?
No.
The cube story. Good. I think it's real convenient that I don't even know where it came from, but they talk about how we're going to need a Borg, and at the end, Eleanor's being chased down, and he just looks over and sees the Fenris SOS token that that Seven gave them before. It's like, well, that seems convenient. Where'd that come from? I also like when Eleanor runs into Larissa, and he's like, "All right, we're gonna fight." She's like, "Oh no, we fight hand to hand, right?" It's like, "No, Eleanor, that's what she wants. don't put your sword away." But he's dumb and he falls for it.
That actually tracks for him. I feel like that makes sense. Yeah, that he would do that.
I'm going to be totally honest with you. That's my thing. I am a big dope. I will fall for whatever you do. Now let's go. So we traject ourselves back to Nepenthe, planet California, as I like to call it. Did you think it was kind of? I know these guys have known each other for a while, but do you think it's kind of weird that the second Picard shows up, Riker's like, "Shields up!" Like his house has shields and they're. And scanners and things like that. Like what? Who's
Turn
that
on
for?
anti-cloaking technology.
Yeah, give the anti-cloaking technology to stop the Xinti, which I think we were talking about this when we talked about the animated series, are the cat creatures from the animated series. So I guess they're canon.
Yeah. That's cool. I guess. That would be great if they were in Picard. I would love to see those brought to life.
Yeah, they could do it with, they've got the technology, but the way that they treat him, Picard, and I guess we haven't seen his life past Nemesis, but they treat him like, oh, here, Jean-Luc Picard, in trouble again. Oh, what is it this time?
Yeah.
And later on, he's like, well, thanks for not talking me out of this. And he's like, oh, I would never even try. Everybody knows that you can't be talked out of stuff. That was literally your job. We've seen you do that 100 times on TNG. Go, well, Captain, you can't beam down to the planet. Like, I'm going to do that. Like, that was his job as the first officer. So why do they feel the need to manufacture this new aspect to Picard's character where he's just this loose cannon just going off all the time? What is that based on?
I can at least get the second half there about like you can't talk him out of stuff, because especially with like, I think they really went with that where it's like he's gonna stick to his guns, like I think of like Insurrection or whatever, he's gonna lay the pips down if he doesn't like.
Dewey, you figured it out. They're talking about movie Picard.
Yeah, he's gonna ride the dune buggy.
Jesus Christ! Oh! I quit this show. I quit it. We did it. We found my breaking point. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about, guns, sweaty, swinging from vines or whatever. They're not talking about like Shakespeare tea, let's talk this out, Picard. They're talking about the guy that left Salieri to just blow up on that satellite at the end of Insurrection. Well, they could have beamed him out. He could have faced justice. They're just like,
what you're forgetting in all this is Picard is not... We thought it was going to be a sequel to all the 90s Star Trek shows, but it's really just a sequel to Nemesis and Insurrection. Not even the good movies,
I really hate that, and I want to.
It's all about Nemesis. They're always talking about Nemesis
and Data.
Talk about
he
something
died.
better.
Whatever. Okay, so I think I think the basic structure is about Nemesis, but then they go in and they try to pepper it with references to the show Spot 2 notwithstanding. But like there's a scene where like Kestra's lady or chick, kid, I'm taking a shower here, but where she jumps up on the table, she's like, can you play the piano? Do you like Sherlock Holmes? Do you do this? It's like, yep, check. Right? Did you
ballroom dancing? Yeah.
Do ballroom dancing? Yeah. I remember all that stuff. Yeah, it's just I want to assume the best about the people that make this show, but yeah, like your whole thing about the movie, and then also like here are the checklist. Here's the checklist for what we've seen Data do.
Yeah, it's
did you have sex with Tasha Yar?
It's like we googled Kestra to figure out, okay, that's what we're gonna name her. So maybe it's not as like good as I was giving it credit for earlier.
Just to pause your point, like, what'd you think about that? What'd you think about her being named Kestra?
No, I thought that was nice, actually.
Yeah. I mean, we've got an episode because of it, but I'm just wondering, like, if you thought that there was any thematic significance to that, like what, other than just going, well, we're also going to have it, we're going to replicate the dead kid thing, like, why Kestra?
Well, I don't know. It just brought me back because I didn't remember that when I watched this episode the first time around. But then when now with it brought me back to the scene where she's kind of talking to her mom and like helping her, but then also like there's the acknowledgement of like, hey, I just found out that I had a sister that I didn't even know about,
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. I thought that was actually kind of nice. It's kind of a basic thing, but like okay, I'm gonna like honor this sibling that I didn't even know,
Yeah,
like it carries some significance to her and maybe her mother,
Yeah. Do you think that Loxana is alive still? I mean, I know that the actress is not, but in this time,
I guess I don't know. Because the last we saw her was just like doing something with Odo, right? And then that's it.
Right. Yeah, and she was going to have a baby. So like Troy has a sister out there who is, I guess older than Kestra, but would be in her 20s or something.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't know. I just thought it was like a nice like little touch, but it didn't seem like a big, like a big thing. It was like it was to me like an unobtrusive Easter egg.
Yeah. Speaking of Kestra, I don't like Kestra. I don't like her at all. I don't either.
I'm
willing to accept. Once again, I'm asking, who's this for? Like, they're trying to. I can accept that there's cosplayers, I guess, in the Star Trek universe. Although you could actually go into space and be an astronaut, but sure, like. Her brother is basically Tolkien. Thad is like inventing languages like left and right. And then, of course, it's just the Tolkien obvious influence is just so obvious because you've got this kid who makes languages for fun. So clearly that's going to lead to him creating an entire fantasy world with like elves in green cloaks and like daughters of the forest or whatever. And it's just, to me, it just seems like, why? Like, I'm not saying it's not interesting or creative. Sure, I guess it could work, but why? Like, who's this for? Who are you trying to impress? Why is this?
You actually hit on it to me earlier when you said it was like Planet California. And this goes for the whole Riker family, where it's like, they're like that extremely rich family that can like afford to like live in the woods and be like, the simple life, but it's like, yeah, the simple life with your like giant pizza oven and your anti-cloaking technology stuff. Like, they just seem like the like kind of your typical like rich white liberal suburban family.
Man, I love where this is going. Yeah, no wonder Kestra's going nuts. Like, she's a girl who's like has to grow up alone by herself. Her brother died. Her only friend is Captain Crandall. Captain Crandall is grooming her. They need to get on that right now.
That's so weird.
Who is this guy? And again, they just present that it's a character we never see who literally provides like an important plot point. She talks about it all the time. Am I missing? Am I supposed to get something out of this? Like, what is going on?
It's just so they can, get the info from him, and then he's gone.
And is that a reference to something, or is that like an inside joke? I don't understand.
No idea. I think I said I liked watching Picard and Riker hang out, but now I don't. I don't think I like anything about this.
Sorry, I think I wrecked that for you.
I liked Riker making pizza. Like, that is cool. Don't ruin that for me, please.
My big problem...
Even that goes back to what you're saying. Like, I know you said it as a joke, but it's like the whole, like, yeah, I'm rugged. We hunt for our food. And it's like, you don't have to do that, man. Like,
yeah.
You don't have to do that.
You just replicate it. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
What I don't like mostly about Kestra, I think the character's fine. I'm even willing to accept the weird, like, Tolkien stuff. But, like, the actress is too old. Like, they clearly have written her to be like a G. Gosh type thing. And I don't know how old this girl is, but she's a young woman. Do you know what I mean? Like, she should not, maybe they're infantilizing her, but she's just too old to be doing this kind of thing. And, like, either cast somebody younger or age it up. You've got Soji, who's like, 22, 23. If she was like a 16-year-old or like a 15-year-old, and they were she saw her as like a big sister, which they're clearly trying to put in here. She's like, oh, it's kind of cool that you can take care of yourself. And I think the way to go is, my parents are on me all the time. It's cool that, like, you can do whatever you want and you're super strong, but instead they just focus on, like, I have a mom, but you don't have a mom. It's like, what is this dialogue?
Yeah, there's a lot of dialogue, actually, that it's like, we're just like, which, I mean, this happens even in classic Star Trek, even more so, because it's like, welcome back from the commercial break, but it's like, I'm explaining exactly what is happening.
Oh, there's this. Okay, so this episode is like 59 minutes long. It's like almost an hour. And in it, they literally explain what happened last episode. And then when they're at the dinner table and they're trying to figure this out, they're literally explaining, like, things that we already know as an audience. And you need that on a weekly show where maybe you don't know, you don't watch Star Trek all the time, you're just dropping in. But presumably, episode 7, you have watched episodes 1 through 6. Why are you eating up time by having them explain things that we already know?
Yeah. Yeah, they should have just made this episodic, and it maybe would have forced them to write slightly more coherent episodes, I think.
Yeah, Picard is like, he's like, remember when you saved you and your sister was so great, and listen to my voice, look at my pupils, read my skin temperature or whatever. We get it. Like, I guess now I didn't know this, but I guess she can tell he's lying. Data never had that power, and it's just, they have to go over everything again and again and again and try to convince her. It doesn't help that the episode literally starts. So she has just escaped a gas attack, which, can gas kill her? But Narek tries to gas her to death. I guess it's a corrosive gas or whatever. And so she trusts Picard almost immediately, instinctually. He brings her to this planet, but now suddenly her new thing is, because she's not the same character as last episode, I don't believe anything. This is somehow a trick or a simulation or whatever. And then 2 minutes into them getting to the planet, he's like, so your sister's dead. Oh, your life is fake. You're an android. Trump is president. Prince, David Bowie, and George Michael are all dead. Like, he just drops all of this stuff on her, which is really, he's a diplomat. Like, why would he do that? Except we need her to immediately distrust him so this episode makes sense. Like, he can get wisdom from Riker and Troy with how to deal with her, which he never employs. He just goes, use your lie detecting powers on me. It doesn't.
Well,
I'm ready to stop. It's just going to be this for the rest of the.
Yeah, actually, I don't even think I need to respond, because it's just become circular at some point.
Yeah, it absolutely has. What I wanted to connect, though, the reason that we make this show between Dark Page and this is, I think it's great to show that you can't, unless you're going to. Like Tasha Yar, unless you're going to kill her and throw her off the show, you have to show how a character reacts to tragedy, but it can't eat them up and destroy them because they have to come back for 7 more seasons or whatever. And I think that, it was the 7th season of TNG, but I really appreciated the way that they showed how characters dealt with this specific trauma. Even if the clock is running out on their 45-minute episode, it was important to have weight. And it stuck with you. And maybe if there was a season 8 of TNG, we would see her meet her mom again, and they would have more to say about Kestra. Whereas in Star Trek Picard, Soji goes on. In another 2 hours, she'll be ready to wipe out like all organic life in the universe with space caterpillars.
Yeah,
because
I was thinking about
her
that.
gold twin for a little bit. Yeah, like the character's yeah.
I was thinking about the drama between her and Picard and like, can she trust him or whatever? But then I one thing that came to me was like, this doesn't matter. Like from what I remember about the last 2 episodes is like, this is not that important to the whole thing. But maybe it is a factor. But to me, it like she goes like off the rails like a couple episodes later.
Yeah, and we get a little bit. We don't even get it from Riker, but we get a little bit from Troy when Picard is kind of talking to her about Thad, and we don't even. I mean, Marina Sirtis is a great actress. Like we get a note of melancholy from her, and like she's clearly not cool with talking about it so much. But that's all we really get. Like you guys killed a kid off screen, and we get no interaction or interface with like that fact. And this must have happened fairly recently. I was trying to do the math on when the synth band started and when they might have moved here, and when Kestra was born and how old everybody is and what's going on. They came to this planet with regenerative powers. What? Remember that movie? Remember that Star Trek movie where the Federation was willing to like go crazy over? But anyway, whatever. And so I was trying to like work out like the dates and times, and she explains that. Oh, there's they even tie it back to Data, and it doesn't matter at all. She explains that he had a virus that was a silicon virus, and the cure is you culture something in a positronic matrix, but there aren't any of those around anymore. And I was like, bitch, there's more around now than there ever was when you knew Data. Data and Lore were like, and his mom were the only Soong androids in the world. About just 3 or 4 years ago, there were presumably thousands of Datas working all over the Federation, right? They pulled the trigger on that. So I know that they probably shut them all down and banned them, but you couldn't get your hands on like a black market positronic matrix? Like, you could mass produce these things. You could download the plans off the internet. It would be so easy to get a
3D print
positronic
this.
matrix. Yes. Yeah, there's
Riker could figure this out.
There's a real-life 3D printer on the Serena. Why did they do that? There's literally replicators.
Yeah.
So many things don't make any sense. All right.
Okay, you convinced me. Like before, going into this, I was like, "Well, Picard is like a kind of fun show."
I'm so sorry.
If you don't think about it in
I
terms
had no
of
right
Star
to do
Trek.
that.
Yeah,
I had no right to do that.
You ruined
to
it
you.
for me.
It's Michael Chabon, is what it is. He's a novelist, and it's a novelist thing to have a character who, in her spare time, has created this world, and she lives in this dream world. It doesn't service like what we're doing right now, like the show. He puts all these touches and this illumination and filigree like in the edges that I think it has value, and it makes the world more interesting, but it's not. We got to stick to this. You've got about 30 minutes of plot here in like the entire show, and everything else is just grace notes. And you can't build like a whole show out of grace notes. Like the way that it ends, and he's like, we're going on more adventures. What adventures? You all are different people who have different objectives that can't be accomplished on this ship. You got together just to stop the space caterpillars. And what are you going to do now? What are you talking about? But I want to see it.
I'll tell you what, though. I did cry when Riker put his hand on Picard's shoulder and Picard grabbed his little hand.
Grabbed his little hand.
Yeah, I cried because they're friends, and that made me cry.
Yeah, I cried when we saw Troy. It was good to see Troy again.
Yeah,
it was just so amazing to think like just everything, just all the years and everything we've gone through. Like, I'm so glad that these characters got to return, no matter what, however it turned out with bunny corn sausage or whatever. Like, I'm so glad that they brought these characters back. So, what are you gonna do? I'm a sucker for Star Trek. I can't help it.
Is there hope still?
Oh boy, I don't know. They want to bring Geordi back. They want to bring the Doctor back, supposedly. No, we'll see.
Whoopi's coming back.
They're bringing, well, that's what they said. They're bringing Brent Spiner back, like that dumb new character they made up. Hey, I'm Soong's other son.
I'm the worst Soong.
Please be Laura in disguise, right? Am I right?
Oh my
He's
god,
gotta
that
be
would be
Laura.
sick.
Right? Yeah. Or just
I'd love him to pull off a mask of his face and Laura's face is underneath.
Or like it starts raining and the pink starts washing off. Right? He's like white underneath. Yeah. All right, we gotta stop. All right, look, you know and I know that Star Trek is about technology in a lot of ways. It facilitates the good stuff.
Oh God, no.
It causes the bad stuff. So on every show, we randomly pick from a list of Star Trek technologies, and we see how each would be different. It's our technological exchange. And I'm going to roll on my random number selector from this list. We've got a list of technologies. It's phasers, holodecks, tricorders, transporters, warp drive, replicators, communicators, shields, advanced medical technology, and androids. You'll notice telepathy, not a technology, so it's not on this. And here's what we get. I got advanced medical technology. Perfect. This is the perfect choice. And Gooey's going to tell us why right now.
Because, I mean, Crusher just wouldn't be in the episode anymore.
I think she could be there with like a bone saw, but she's not going to have like, she can't, detect pressure in somebody's metacortex, or that's not going to work.
I guess it would be cool. It'd be more like a fantasy thing, but like Star Trek would now be a world with like no medical technology, but like crazy telepathy powers.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. Like maybe all surgery could be of the mind,
That's an interesting point, and I think it shows like power creep in the franchise. Because remember, I think that was really true of the original series. Like it was more Old West. The reason that a lot of those red shirts died is they got hit with something, and we didn't have anything for it. And then you get like Spock's brain. Like McCoy has to like plug into something to like learn how to put somebody's brain back in. I feel like Crusher could just do it. You know what I mean? I feel like Crusher could just put Spock's brain in and that would be that. Like, it wouldn't be a problem.
Yes.
So, if Crusher was only good as McCoy, like that's what we're dealing with here. There's obliquely a lot of, like, medical technology in this. Like, Luxana spends a lot of time in sickbay, but we don't really get a big focus on what the technology is. So, I think Kestra would still be dead because drowning is pretty basic.
Yeah. Maybe they would be more like mindful because your child would be in much more danger, at any given moment.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Or maybe you're more telepathically connected.
Yeah. Maybe the Cairn wouldn't have their little voice boxes because that's kind of like that's medical technology. If you have a tracheotomy and you can't talk, you get a thing. So that would be right out. So they wouldn't. The whole thing would take longer because Cairn guy wouldn't be able to talk in broken sort of English to explain the thing about the dark place. Which, help me out here. It's called Dark Place. Why is the episode called Dark Page? He says it's her dark place. Why did they change it to Dark Page?
What's
the page?
I think it's Dark Place doesn't sound as good as a title. I don't think poetically, Dark Page sounds more evocative.
And he doesn't understand the language, so he could easily malaprop to page instead of place, and they'd be like, I think you mean place. But then it just sort of sticks as like, this is this dark page.
Or why
am I helping them out?
Well, this is not answering this is not getting to the bottom of medical technology either.
Not really. I thought it was gonna be
maybe
perfect.
they'd have to learn to like telepathically communicate with the Federation or something, like with humans. I don't know.
Maybe we'd be the Federation would be at war with them because there would be no way to understand them, and they're always getting scanned. Every time they try to have a first contact with them, it's like oh my god.
That would make for a good arena type episode.
Oh, you know what? You got there a half second before me, but I just began to think the same thing. Yeah, like they misunderstand each other because they just can't communicate, which has of course been the basis of many Star Trek episodes.
Yeah, that's just Darmok, but
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. We lapped ourselves. We've lapped ourselves in the Star Trek universe. We've come all the way back around. All right, well, screw it then. Let's go on to Nepenthe. Now, should we? I guess we have to take it away from Nepenthe too, don't we? So, what if Nepenthe lacked advanced medical technology?
well, Thad would just he'd be
They
so
wouldn't
much
even-
more dead.
If he's super dead, they wouldn't even be there at all. You know, I got a question for you. Like, so he's got a silicon-based virus, which sounds like a sci-fi thing, which, biologists or exobiologists theorize that silicon life might be possible. So, I mean, it just sounds like I'm willing to accept it, whatever, it's a sci-fi thing.
That's another, like, we watched that one episode of the original series, and we're like, let's put that in there.
Yeah. So, my question is, if it's silicon, could it possibly be, related to artificial life? Like maybe he caught it from an android or caught it from the Borg or like a cyborg species or something like that. So if advanced medical technology never existed to create like cyborgs or something like that, would he have this at all?
Maybe. I mean, I thought that they were going to give them more of an in into like being part of the, like not directly, but being a little bit more involved in the story, like it affecting them or affecting Picard through them more than just like them being like, well, there's no positronic matrices, so we can't, we couldn't save him. But I thought like maybe it was going to come back to like bite them or something, bite Picard in some way, like. You know, maybe he would be like responsible in some way, but they can't. I don't know, but that wasn't a factor. But
and she's literally looking at the young woman that could have saved her son's life a couple years ago. But how does she feel about that? We don't know. We're not digging into that. So, Agnes would be super dead too. Or no, you know what? Agnes would be fine because she wouldn't have been able to even 3D print hypospray to give herself the stuff that breaks down the tracer in the first place. So no third barf.
There are a lot less barfing, still a lot of quivering, but that's to be expected.
You can't cure the quivering. Yeah. Let's keep kicking the shit out of Picard. There's a part at the end. It's like they're drinking coffee and they're going to that moment that made you cry. But before that, Riker's like, "So what's going on? Like, what do you got going on?" And Picard's like, "Oh boy, my crew, they're dealing with a lot of things that will create a lot of opportunities for storytelling in the future." Like he's basically just like repitching the show to Riker. There's just a lot of talk. There's a thing in theater and a lot of entertainment that says show, don't tell. Don't explain it to me. Just do it. You know what I mean? And there was a lot of telling on Picard.
They're decidedly motley.
They're so motley.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of conflict that could lead to very high ratings in the future.
Yeah, a lot of bad writing going on. That advanced medical technology could not save.
That's absolutely true. Picard would also be dead. There would be no show because Picard has
his heart.
A fake heart, which he mentions because, hey, remember?
They read his wiki page.
Has he met Kestra? Oh, well, clearly she knows who he is, so which is never explained. But he's met her before. Maybe it was just when she was a baby.
He's gotta know. Yeah, he knows enough about Riker.
So I guess she
they're
doesn't
in
know.
touch.
But when you meet like a relations kid that you haven't met in a while, and I guess they're playing, but like, do you go, "Hey, don't shoot me in the heart. I've got a fake heart"?
I think he knows. He might not know how much of a friggin' nerd she is, but it's obvious that she's like, knows what he looks like. She's she's Googled him or whatever, and
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we can't even get through it. Well, was this a success or?
No, definitely not.
This was definitely not a success.
This was a shame.
If we're just going to completely jettison the technology exchange, which I think is probably fine. It's 2 different Trek episodes. It doesn't make any sense. What I do when I watch something like this is I think it's not for me. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't, I think it's great that people like it. I wish I liked it more. I don't want to destroy it, and I'm not going to sign a petition that, that it needs to be different. Like, I'm not sure that it's for me. And that happens when I watched the show Love, Simon recently, which is like a spinoff of the movie Love, Simon. And I really liked the movie Love, Simon. I liked the show okay, but I don't think I haven't watched network TV in a while. And I'm pretty sure all network TV shows are like this now, but it's just like, it's relentless. Like everybody is talking a mile a minute. Like the Gilmore Girls would tell these guys, like, slow down a little. And there's like this,
Right.
There's this like aggressive music bed that has to play under everything. And I think I might watch it in the future, but it's not for me. I think a younger viewer that grew up with a different kind of TV storytelling would be like, oh, this is great. And that's how I feel about stuff like this. Like I start poking holes in it, and there's just a million holes, and I think, but somebody else will watch this and not even see the holes. I was on a panel at a con recently, and we were talking about Captain Marvel, and like, I was there to argue in good faith that it could have been better. Like, I wasn't there to yuck anybody's yum, but I had some points to make about structure. And there were two girls at the end on the panel who both loved the film, and they were younger girls, and they had grew up reading Kelly Sue DeConnick Captain Marvel comics, and they were so pumped. They were so excited to see their favorite character on screen that they loved the film, and they wouldn't hear any criticism about anything that I wanted to point out that doesn't work, because it worked for them, and they loved the film, and they were so excited to see like Captain Marvel 2. And so that's when I criticize this, that's kind of how I feel. Like, it's just something that's passing by me, and I'm going, you're going too fast, but it's already left me behind. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I think even with I don't know. I guess it is like these different things exist, and it's probably good to like keep that in perspective, because I catch glimpses every once in a while of like a lot of current shows, and I just in my mind I think, wow, this is just trash. This is garbage. But if I know someone who is watching it and likes it, I try to temper that and more figure out, okay, like, why do you like it or whatever, what is appealing about it to you, or like just listen to them talk about it if they want. But I think the problem that we have here now is like we just both don't like it, so we're like going down the rabbit hole of,
here's the test. As a musician and a guy who's into music, have you yet heard like a style of music where you went, what is this, what's going on, like a new type of music that comes out and you're like, what?
Not necessarily, no. There's
All
definitely
right. Well,
that
then you're
definitely
still a young
happens.
man, Gooey, and I envy you.
There's there's plenty of like bands or artists like that's happened where it's like, I don't understand why people like this. But in general, like with most styles or whatever, even like with popular culture and stuff, like when I hear something, like I usually hear something that is like, okay, I can, even if it's not my thing, I can understand why people like it. But that's totally different for me with shows. Maybe it's just because I don't watch a lot of TV shows, and the ones I do watch it's just like, I'll watch Star Trek over and over, something else I like.
A place of comfort and familiarity.
Yeah, I've like
a place to go home to, like Nepenthe. Yeah,
I have a home. Yes, I have a homeland, or whatever they say.
Extra bunny. Oh my God. All right, look, that's it. The end. Curtain comes down on Dark Page and Nepenthe. What are we talking about on our next show?
Oh, wow. Like, my mind was wiped there. But, so for the next episode, we're going to talk about the Deep Space Nine two-parter, Past Tense, which is, I think, an all-time great, and how it's real-life inspirations of the Attica prison riots. So that'll be cool, because I don't know much about it. So, like,
Deep Space Nine, that's some real Star Trek.
Yeah, we're finally
old
getting
stuff.
back to the good stuff. No one's felt that way about Deep Space Nine when it came out, that it was different and weird and bad.
God no. Yeah. That's a dash of perspective for sure. Yeah, it's a fascinating story, and I mean, we can't hide it. I mean, we're picking this because of the current moment, but both the DS9 episodes and the actual real life Attica prison riot, once you start to look into it, you will see chilling parallels to what we are still experiencing in this country today. So, fun one coming up in the future. We'll do our best to make it fun.
Clint Howard. It'll make it fun.
Clint Howard. That's right. And that's it for this week's Backtrekking. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you like the show, tell a friend and follow us at Backtrekking on Twitter. You can tell us also what you think we should cover on future episodes. We're always looking for new backtreks to go on. Gooey, where can people find you online?
Go find me on Twitter at Gooey Fame and check out my other podcasts there. Thank you.
Absolutely. And you can find me at K-A-1-I-B-A-N on Twitter and find other shows on the Just Enough Trope Network at Just Enough Trope on Twitter. That's it for us for this week. We will see you soon. And until then, keep on trekking.